Hey everyone! In this video, we are going to categorize some transactions under the sample company here in QuickBooks Online. First is we're going to click the accounting button and then proceed to bank transactions. And this is the dashboard of the bank transactions in which this is where we can categorize some of the uncategorized transactions from the bank. Okay, so before we start, I will introduce to you, this is the three bank accounts of the client or under the sample company. So make sure that your clients has connected or linked their bank account so that it will be easier for you to generate transactions and categorize that one. Okay, so if you have noticed, inside of this box, there are numbers aside from this amount, okay? And this numbers, this is where we can see the uncategorized transactions per bank. So in checking account, we have 25 uncategorized transactions. Under savings account, we have one uncategorized transaction. Under MasterCard account, we have 7 uncategorized transactions. So we need to categorize that one so that it will be posted to the bank transactions and ready for the reconciliation. So let's start with categorizing at least some 3 categorize or transactions. So let's first do this books by Bessie last July 6, 2026. Again, this is just a sample company. So this transaction is under the received column. Under the received column, it's possibly be a transaction from income or a refund. Okay, income, refund, or a loan. That's usually the transactions under the received column. So let's go, for example, books by Bessie. So let's click this from to. So let's click this from to section here or from to column and choose the correct customer. So let's click this from to column so that we can identify which customer this transaction is. And look for books by Bessie. Okay, this is correct. And then let's categorize this one. If the QuickBooks doesn't suggest a match, it means there's no other invoice that has been created. So let's categorize it by income. If there's no matching category with this. So let's categorize it by choose income. Okay, let's click design income since this is a design company. Okay, then click, either you click post if you are really sure with these transactions, or click split if there is a different amount in these transactions, or create backdated invoice, create rule for this one so that once it was generated by the bank, it will be easier for you to categorize since we have a bank rule in this. But if it's very often to generate in these transactions, then no need to create the rule. Okay. Next is categorization history. This is where you can see who's the one who categorized these transactions, okay? Then exclude if you don't want to include this one to the bank statement or bank transactions, but please avoid this exclude, especially if this transaction is in the bank statement, because it will not be reconciled. Okay, so let's click post on this one. Now, before you categorize transactions, of course, if you are not sure with that transactions, there are options or there are suggestions that I can. So before we categorize these transactions, or if you are not sure what category, so if you are not sure with these transactions and how to categorize these transactions, there are suggestions or advice that I could say, or options that I can suggest to you. Like, first is before you ask your client, you can check here in a search bar if it has a bank feeds history. It means if these transactions are normally or monthly is in the bank feeds. Like, or you have posted this one last month, last 2 months, so that it will be easier for you to categorize. So for example, um, books by Bessie. Okay, we're going to search the search button or history of this one if it has a books by Bessie transactions months ago. So it indicates here that we have four transactions or three transactions before we did the categorization of this one. We have we have we have three transactions from May, April, and March. So you can either click either of this one, but make sure that this is the same under the received column. Okay, if it is bill payment or bill, of course, it is under the expense account. So that will not be considered as an income, right? So since the books by Bessie is under the received column, automatically we will going to think that one as an income, a refund, or a loan. But it's impossible that that's a loan. Okay? So this is the first step. First step again is to check the history of that transactions. Another example is a rental. Search for a rental. Okay. Since there's no category or there's no previous transactions for a car rental or a rental, sorry, a rental, so it means this is the first time that your client has a transactions like this. So what is the next suggestion? The next I can suggest to you is to ask your clients. So again, before you ask your client, look some other way and find any previous transaction or any previous transaction from the bank feeds, from the chart of accounts, from the register. So look for a way or look for other transactions that will help you to categorize these current transactions. Okay. Since there's no previous transactions for a rental, then that's the time that we're going to ask your client. So if your client has been responded, for example, your client has been responded that this a rental under the receive section or column is an income from a customer. Okay, so let's categorize that one. Let's go to from to column, then click for a rental if it has. If there's no section or no customer that is named under a rental, you can click these transactions, look for any statement or transaction under this one. So if you cannot found, because mostly bank transaction has a description on that transaction, so maybe you can find that clue who's or whom did we receive whom did we receive the payment. Okay, so if there's none, then you need to, of course, add new. So if you are so if there's no existing customer details, so we need to click the plus add new and enter the customer details. So if you wanted to know how to enter customer details and create an invoice, then we have an offer for you. And so if you want to know how to create customer details, how to enter customer details, create an invoice, then please enroll here in our training. You can message us for more details. So let's proceed in categorizing this transaction here. Okay, let's just put an example. Since this is rental, let's click, and since this is an income, this is, let's say, other income. Okay, but of course, it depends on your client's transactions, client type of industries. You cannot just put and or categorize into different income because your clients wants a clean books, clean financial reports. So I suggest that you should not create a chart of accounts that has a lot of income because it will be confusing. Okay, and it looks messy. Then let's click post. So that's it for categorizing transactions. So in this account, we only have uncategorized transactions 23. So we only have 23 uncategorized transactions. So that's it. Thank you for watching.